All right, everyone. Welcome into Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, a wrap on week 10 of college football and what I called all week the biggest games of the season for one particular week. Some were really good games, lived up to the hype, others did not. So somebody out there is going to have to give me reason to watch the rest of the college football season because I think I saw it tonight. I saw everything I need to know tonight in Baton Rouge. So I will strike up the live chat and we will talk about all the games, all the scenarios, everything that you would possibly want to see. If you're coming across my channel for the first time, this is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We discuss, debate, and analyze the game we love, college football, each and every day. We've got the best live chat room here in college football, and we provide live streams and videos each and every day. 29-0. 29-0. And I was foolish enough after everything I had seen this year out of that Alabama offense and knowing that the Alabama defense would play much better than it has in previous weeks because they actually had something to play for. And I had mentioned that to a number of people that said Alabama's defense is trash this year. Oh, is it really trash? They weren't going to play hard. They weren't going to stop teams when they didn't need to stop teams when they were up by 4 or 5 touchdowns. So you could not evaluate Alabama's defense until this game. This was the first game that we could really evaluate Alabama's defense. And regardless of LSU being limited on offense, nobody else is shutting out LSU. Nobody is coming close to shutting out LSU. This is how good Alabama is. Plain and simple. This is how good they are. And Mississippi State and Auburn have a very slim chance, probably about 10% of the chance that LSU did in Death Valley of showing us something different. Georgia would be one of the teams that I would deem, and I will be asking you this question tonight, who can possibly beat Alabama? I don't think anybody out there in their right minds could say this team's better than Alabama, but we know that on a given day, the best team doesn't always win. The better team doesn't always win the football game on that given day. So if you've got Alabama and you've got Team B, whoever that is, Clemson, Georgia, Michigan, they would be the 3 most likely candidates. If they play their A+ game and Alabama plays its C game, then maybe we do have a game. Who is that team? Who are those teams that could possibly beat Alabama? Not that they're better, but they could beat them on the right day. That's what I'm going to be asking you. Let's go to the live chat. We had a lot of action today. We had a lot of important games. Notre Dame beat Northwestern. They were up 21-7 after scoring a couple touchdowns in the third quarter right after halftime. It was a 7-7 game at halftime. Northwestern gave them a fight, closed within 24-21, and Notre Dame put a drive together, scored with about 2 minutes left to ice it 31-21 and finished that game right on the point spread at 31-21. So not necessarily an impressive showing by the Irish, but they did what they needed to do. They were the better team on the field, and they didn't luck into a win, but they weren't overly impressive. Clemson, again, was overly impressive, even though they played something close to a high school team today in scoring 77 points. Of course, Georgia, in this week in which ESPN billed it as statement week, Georgia made a statement. Michigan made a statement. Alabama made a statement. Michigan, Georgia, Alabama. Those 3 teams made statements. Positive statements. Miami, again, gave us a statement. It was a statement about not being able to move the ball on offense and having maybe not necessarily the right offensive scheme or play caller in place. And we've talked that up in recent days. I just got finished watching Oklahoma dispose of Texas Tech. Pretty entertaining second half because they actually played a little bit of defense mixed in with the offense. They were on their way to about 70 points each in the first half, and then they started to play a little bit of defense in the second half, and a few guys actually put a pad into somebody to stop them after catching a 15-yard pass. And Oklahoma won the game 51-40, I think was the final, as they scored a late touchdown. Actually, Texas Tech scored with about a minute left. They had an onside kick to try to get the ball back, and they had two failed two-point conversions near the end of the game that proved somewhat costly. They got the ball back late, scored with a minute left, went for the two-point conversion, did not get it, went for the onside kick, did not get it. Oklahoma survives 51-46. All right. See what you guys have in the live chat. Otherwise, I'm just going to run down games. And, of course, the lines are open. The line, 860-325-3687. 860-325-3687. And I'll put that right in the live chat. Adam, the sports guy, is in with us here. I'm done with Mark Richt. It looks like he's trying to get fired so he can retire early and still collect his money. You know, Miami fans, I thought you jumped the gun a little bit earlier this season after the LSU game and after the 3-game slide at the end of last season, but I'm on board with you right now. There is no reason why Miami should be losing to the likes of Virginia, Boston College, and Duke. Lose one of those games in a season, and it's disappointing, and it probably shouldn't happen. Lose 2, lose 3 to 3 teams that are generally 7-5 type of teams that are top 40 to 50 teams in the country. Miami should not lose those kind of games. Mark Richt came in. He took over a struggling program. He improved the recruiting. And they went 9-4 and won their first bowl game in 11 years 2 years ago. Then last season, of course, they won the first 10. They lost to superior teams in Wisconsin and Clemson at the end of the year. The Pitt loss was a bit inexcusable, but again, that's going to happen once every 2 or 3 years. But now they come into this season with high expectations, a number 8 ranking to start the season. Everybody in the world picked them to go to the ACC championship game. They play in possibly the weakest division in college football, and they stand now at 5-4, having lost again to Duke, Virginia, and Boston College, and in none of those games did they score 20 points. They did not score 20 points in this day and age of college football against the likes of Duke, BC, and Virginia. Those 3 teams all have decent defenses. They really do. They have decent defenses. They have top 40 or 50 defenses, all 3 of them. But not to score 20 points in 3 games against 3 marginal teams is inexcusable. Drake Knapp, undisputed number 1, Bama. I agree. They beat LSU. They finally played a team that we thought might be worthy of standing on the same field, but it proved to not be the case. It was easy to see that this game was going to take on similar attributes of recent Alabama-LSU games, and that's that LSU is extremely talented. They have NFL players all over the defense, that they would be able to challenge Bama defensively against Bama's offense, even with Tua Tagovailoa in a play versus Jalen Hurts in recent years. But it would just be a struggle. It was a struggle. It was a painful struggle to watch LSU just try to make a first down. They were making first downs by inches. You know, they if they got 4 or 5 yards on a play or hit a swing pass to the outside and got 4 or 5 yards, that was an accomplishment. They were just barely getting first downs. And you can't, the statistics, the probabilities, the possibilities of sustaining that are just almost zero. You need big gash plays, and the big gash plays that Alabama had given up earlier to the likes of Arkansas and a few other teams just weren't coming in this game. You know why? Because it mattered, because the game was still a game. It was still no score, or 6-0, or 9-0, 16-0. So they still knew it was a game. You cannot judge any particular team, especially the team of Alabama's caliber, when they are winning games 42-14 and then say Arkansas ripped off 500 yards of total offense. Alabama's defense sucks. I don't know how many times that's been commented to my channel over the last 6 or 7 weeks, and I've said, okay, there's a slim possibility that you might be right. There's a small chance that you might be right, that this may be the Alabama defense that we've never seen under Nick Saban, that actually struggles. That's like an Ohio State defense this year, or some other first-rate, what we would think should be first-rate defenses that have struggled. Maybe this is finally the Alabama defense that the offense is going to have to outscore. But we don't know yet because, number one, I'm going to trust that Nick Saban, he's always been a defensive genius. So I can't imagine that they're that bad on defense. I'm actually going to assume that they're really good when they finally play someone. Number two, they have the 4 and 5 stars all over the place, and they have the talent, and they have always been good on defense under Nick Saban. And number three, I just can't believe that this is really that meaningful. I'm going to have to see them play someone. And when they finally did, it meant something. A goose egg. They made a statement. They just didn't beat LSU. They just didn't escape Death Valley. They went in there, and it was immediate, the difference between the two teams. And this is an LSU team that's really good. But we've seen the limitations against Auburn and Miami. Not so much Miami. Auburn and Florida, and even the Georgia win. Even winning by 20 points, this just didn't seem like an LSU team that was going to be equipped to play with Alabama. Georgia does. Maybe Georgia can compete with Alabama. I'm not saying that they're going to. I'm saying that they're better equipped with the running back talent that they have with DeAndre Swift and Elijah Holyfield, which is much better than LSU. And give Nick Brissett all sorts of credit. He emerged from a running back by committee situation. He won the job. He took hold of the job, and he's done a fine job this year as the LSU starting running back. But he is not a dynamic player. And even when that dynamic player was in the LSU backfield, Leonard Fournette, Darius Geis, 1 versus 11 just didn't work out. LSU got a slap in the face as to what they need to do to reach Alabama's level, and the rest of college football shouldn't be looking at LSU and thinking, what's wrong with you? They should be looking at Alabama and saying, wow, we need to still get to that. What else do you have, Adam, the sports guy? I would take Bama minus 16.5 points versus any team in America. I've been saying that for a month and have been nothing to change my mind. Okay, it's on to 2020 for every other team in America. Hopefully Mike Canes will have a legitimate head coach by then. Yeah, maybe we'll see Alabama and Notre Dame. Antonio Brooks. Adam, the sports guy, I think Notre Dame may actually go 12-0. I've been saying no way, but looks like Syracuse is the best bet to beat them. Crimson and White 17, Roll Tide. Hey guys, NCIS Fanatic 21. All right. Bama Boy, Sense of Tumor. Sense of Tumor, let me hear someone say, who has Bama played? And I understand that, Sense of Tumor. I understand that. You knew Bama was this good. We should have all known Bama was this good. I knew Bama was this good, because it's not like all of a sudden BYU's playing like this and they're not playing anyone and we're thinking, okay, they're beating everyone 55-3. How good are they? This is Alabama. They have the best roster in the country. They have the best coach in the country. They've been doing this for 10 or 11 years, basically nonstop. So we should have never doubted that this was going to happen. And on top of that, they have the most dynamic quarterback that they've ever had. So you're right. We shouldn't have doubted it. Nobody should have doubted this was possible. I still took LSU in the 14.5 points just because of, I tend to go the geek, statistician, logistical route more so than just, I had it in my mind, man, Bama could win this game. I would have said more, I was thinking more in the 45-13 range. I didn't think that they were going to shut out LSU, but I thought LSU would struggle to score, would put up a touchdown and a couple field goals. And yeah, this was going to be something like 38-13, 42-13, something in that range. But the stats geek in me likes to grab the points. And that's not always smart, of course. There's a reason there's a point spread. And if you went through the entire season of college football or the NFL, there's a reason there's a point spread, is that Vegas is evening out the odds. Therefore, you should probably take the points half the time. Today, I was stupid and took the points, I think, 15 out of 20 times. Pitt was a 9-point underdog. They beat Virginia flat out on Friday night. So that was one of those upsets that I talk about. If there's 20 games played in the top 25, you better pick 4 or 5 upsets, because that's generally the target. 20 to 25% of the games will be upsets in the top 25. So there was the one right out of the gate on Friday night. Clemson crushed Louisville by 61 points. They were a 40-point favorite. Ohio State slipped by Nebraska. They were a 19-point favorite. They only won by 5. Syracuse beat Wake Forest. They were only a 6-point favorite. They won by 17. Iowa State over Kansas by 24 points. They were a 16, or depending on your book, up to a 19-point favorite. Georgia beat Kentucky. They were a 9-point favorite. They won by 17. West Virginia, Texas, maybe the game of the day, both in terms of importance and also in terms of just sheer drama at the end of the game and playmaking by Will Grier and Gary Jennings at the end. West Virginia wins 42-41 over Texas. Texas was a 2-point favorite. Purdue, Iowa, great game that went down to the end. Purdue kicked a field goal on the last play of the game. They won 38-36. They were a 2-point favorite. Vegas, dead on, unfortunately for me. I had a push on that one. Penn State, Michigan. We know Michigan fluctuated from anywhere from a 10 to 13-point favorite. They won 42-7. They won by 35 points. BC beat Virginia Tech by 10. Virginia Tech was a 2-point underdog. BC a 2-point favorite. They won by 10. Mizzou, Florida, upset number 2 on the day. Upset number 2. Let me back up. I'll go through the upsets in just a second. Going through the top 25 games, just to recap here, Florida, a 6-point favorite, lost to Mizzou 38-17. Lost by 21 points at home to Mizzou, who had not won a game in the SEC. Utah, Arizona State. Arizona State won by 18 as an 8-point underdog. Duke was a 9.5-point underdog. Somebody needs to be catching on to this trend. Virginia was a 9-point underdog. They beat Miami. Boston College was a 3-point underdog. They beat Miami. Duke, 9.5-point underdog. They beat Miami. Notre Dame, a 10-point favorite, beat Northwestern by 10. Second game, Vegas was dead on. Bama, 14.5-point favorite, beat LSU by 29 points. Oklahoma just beat Texas Tech by 5. They were a 13.5-point favorite. Stanford and Washington, the last I saw, the Huskies were up 21-0. If somebody can give me a final on that game, 21-0. Washington led Stanford. They were a 10-point favorite. Cal and Washington are still on the field, and the last I saw, Washington State was up 10-7 as a 9.5-point favorite. And I also put down Florida State and North Carolina State from noon. North Carolina State was a 9-point favorite. They won by 26. Florida State's a mess. So the flat-out upsets from games in the top 25 or just outside the top 25. Pitt, a 9-point underdog, beat Virginia flat out. West Virginia, 2-point underdog at Texas, won straight up by 1. Missouri, a 6-point underdog in Gainesville, won by 21. Arizona State, an 8-point underdog to Utah, won by 18. Duke, a 9.5-point underdog, won over Miami by 8. And those are your upsets for Friday and Saturday. 860-325-3687. 860-325-3687. The Beast 96, UAB won. They are 8-1 overall record. I think we have a chance to beat Texas A&M in 2 weeks. Air Max, the Legend Killer. Texas lost. Whoa. Antonio Brooks getting to one of the key issues in the game for LSU. Offensive line trash. Gave us no damn chance to win that bull before half. Was ridiculously stupid. Should have been 9-0. Sense of tumor. Ohio State struggles off a bye week, while Alabama wins on the road 29-0. Alabama's better by 14 points than anyone else in the country. Devin White made absolutely no difference. Well, we don't know that, but I understand your point. It was 29-0. It wasn't 21-17. Oh, we got a call coming in. Somebody wants to talk some college football. All right, this is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who do we have on the line? Okay, whoever that was, maybe I know I got to your call in time. Just call back. All right, for anyone who loves college football that is joining us for the first time, or maybe you've seen my videos and seen the live streams but have yet to subscribe, please subscribe. That fuels the channel. That helps us considerably. YouTube goes on algorithms based on analytics and statistics. The more popular you are based on likes and comments and subscriptions, the more it drives the channel, the more we can do, the more I'm going to be invested in building a business for debating, discussing, analyzing college football, because that's what I love to do. And apparently you like it too, because that's what we do here. Yeah, this is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who do we have on the line?
How you doing? This is Antonio Brooks.
Hey, Antonio. How are you?
All righty. My decision almost, well, not my decision, but my foreshadowing almost came to fruition when the first series, Tua almost got knocked out the game.
That's right. You made that prediction last week. Yes.
Yeah, and then I figured he was going to throw a pick, in which LSU defense is one of the best in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And they showed that tonight, but the offensive line has been showing this all season long. I was just waiting on when it was going to just show up to where it just looked ridiculous, and it showed up tonight. So that was the main key to this game, because, I mean, if you have no offensive line, you can't run the ball, you can't throw the ball, you can't do anything if you have nowhere to go with the ball. You see what I'm getting at?
Absolutely. And that's what we've been watching with Alabama and LSU for about 7 or 8 years now.
And, I mean, at the beginning there, all we needed was another 4 minutes to regather ourselves, run the clock out so Devin White can come out, and maybe we had some type of hope to get the offense going. But then we call a doggone play-action pass and get sacked on the same side that he's been getting sacked on all year long.
True.
So you see what I'm getting at here? It's not the OC, it's not the head coach, it's not the defense coordinator. It is the offensive line. You can't hold up against three defenders coming at you, and there's 5 of y'all. Like, what are you doing? Like, even I know that. I played football. Like, you don't even need to be playing football if you can't hold up one defender. That's ridiculous. But Tua, like I've said before, he's not built for the NFL. And he showed that tonight. You look at him wrong, he get hurt. If he plays against a real defense, He's going to get knocked out. I'm not trying to put that on him. I don't wish that on his career or anything. But he's not built for the next level. Just like a lot of them Alabama players that's on that team are not built for the NFL. That's why you don't see their name in the NFL a lot. Because they're used to playing with 4- or 5-star athletes next to them. They're not used to making plays on their own. They're used to having somebody to back them up making plays. They're playing against 4, 3, and 2-star athletes that are playing better than them.
Okay, Antonio,
ridiculous.
let's go through what you're talking about here. First of all, we're comparing LSU and Alabama. And so you're telling me that LSU has one of the best defenses in the country, which I can buy. You are then telling me that you're not blaming this loss on the head coach or the offensive or the defensive coordinators.
No. A coach can only coach you.
Absolutely.
Can't go out there
Absolutely. Let me finish.
Then you can have the best game plan all game long. But if a player don't go out there and utilize that game plan that you gave to them,
absolutely,
it's going to make you look stupid. And that's how coaches get fired, is because players go out there and they're scared. Joe Burrow, I watched the doggone video of him talking about if you're scared to stay in the locker room. Well, he looked pretty scared to me. If it was me, I would have pulled him out. I would have put in a Miles Brennan. I mean, just to be honest. Because he looked like he takes too long to process throwing the football. Like, he understands before the play, goes on in his mind, what he needs to do. But as soon as he gets the ball and it's ball snap, he takes 3 to 5 seconds to figure out what you want to do with the ball. You can't do that against a great defense. You have to get rid of the ball. You have to know, hey, I got 3 seconds in my head mentally. I got to take off running if my wide receiver's not open. I've seen the wide receivers open. I don't know how many times. I'm not going to lie to you. You can go back.
I didn't see that many wide receivers wide open. I saw a few.
I've seen them. Number 10, wide open at the top. I've seen it.
I saw a ton of contested throws, and I saw a lot of batted passes back in his face. You got to understand, you've got to understand, Antonio, that you're telling me in one breath that the offensive line is the reason that they lost, and then you're telling me Burrow was scared and played horribly. Do you think there's any connection there?
Yeah, no, this is the thing. Like, it's a chain reaction. If your offensive line is garbage, okay, and then you finally have a chance to throw the ball, and then your quarterback is not getting the ball out of his hand. You see him getting that here? It's a chain reaction. You cannot. You can't.
You don't have to have me see that. That's what I'm trying to relay to you. This is what you're telling me.
I'm just saying, like, this is like ridiculous. Like how they came out there and just basically wet the bed. Like, you have Odell Beckham Jr. on the sideline. You have all these stars on your sideline, and you just basically go out there. And it really wasn't even 0 to 29 because field goal kicker missed the field goal. Then you have to desperationally throw a damn touchdown just to, excuse my French, to at least not make it look bad in the end of the game.
Well, who really cares at that point? It doesn't matter. The game's not going to be won. Exactly. So whether the game's 29-3 or 29-6 or 29-7,
exactly. But that's gonna be the whole narrative. That's my point.
That they got shut out
because everybody, that's all the media love is Alabama. Who's gonna beat Alabama every year? And LSU is the only team that so-called beat them. Got beat 29-0. That's gonna be the whole narrative this whole week until they play Mississippi State.
Well, of course it is.
Have to worry about.
Well, of course that's going to be the narrative. That's going to be the narrative because Alabama hasn't played a really good team this year, and then they finally did, and they did something that many expected them to do and other people doubted, and they went out and took on a team that many people thought maybe not to be one of the very, very best teams in the country, but to be one of the 5 to 10 best teams in the country that probably played the best schedule. And they went out there on the road in what's supposed to be one of the toughest places to play, and they waxed them. That game was painful. That game was painful. It was painful to watch LSU try to squeak out first downs. What was their longest? I want to look up their longest play on the entire game.
It probably was a pass. And Jefferson was the only one. He's a two-star. That's what I'm getting at. Our best wide receiver is a two-star athlete.
Yeah.
He's going against 5 stars, and he's the best athlete on the field. That's ridiculous. That's why I don't understand. That's why I don't have any respect for these players that's mostly from Louisiana, that are 4 and 5 stars, that go to Alabama, that could be playing at LSU, but you're so weak that you want to go and play for Alabama because you know you're going to win a championship easily. But when you get to the NFL, you're not ready and equipped to win a Super Bowl. That's the whole point here. Your career is not going to last in the NFL because you're so used to just taking the easy route out. Yes, Alabama has the best recruiting and all that good jazz and all that mess, but it's just ridiculous to me that, like, Irvin Smith, when he caught that touchdown, he's from Louisiana. You playing against LSU, you gonna kick our player in his face.
So
you're in Louisiana.
You don't think Amari Cooper's a good NFL player?
No, that's why he just got traded. No, he's not.
Amari Cooper's not a good NFL player?
He just got traded for a reason.
He got traded for a reason because John Gruden is cleaning house in Oakland. He just traded Khalil Mack. Is Khalil Mack not a good player?
He's not producing. That's why they traded him.
No. Khalil Mack's one of the best players in the NFL, and he just got traded.
Mack is a different. Yeah, that's a different player.
Okay, my point is that you are making a blanket statement about all Alabama players being not ready for the NFL, and I would challenge you. I would challenge you to go through the entire NFL and all the Alabama players in the NFL, and I will point out to you that there are superstars like Julio Jones and Amari Cooper and other players. There are C.J. Mosley. C.J. Mosley's an exceptional player. You could go through a number of guys. Then you could go through a number of other players that are good players, impact players. Then you can go through some guys that are busts. They're all over the place.
Exactly. But the only ones I can think of is Ingram from the Saints and Julio Jones. That's about the only one. Cooper, he just got in the headlines because he got traded. So, I mean, I'm not seeing like they might be on the roster, but that don't mean they're playmakers or difference makers.
Okay. O.J. Howard's a really good player, and so is Calvin Ridley.
Oh, yeah. O.J. Howard, yeah. He's a great player, yeah. But he's hurt all the time.
So I'm kind of failing. I'm failing to get your point in terms of diagnosing this particular game and then making this projection toward Alabama players in the NFL. What does that have to do with anything?
I'm just telling you, mentally, LSU is more tougher than Alabama when it comes to down the road. That's all I'm trying to say. Alabama, they're built to win championships in college. But LSU built you to win in the future, in the NFL, to keep getting paychecks in the NFL.
Okay, I don't agree with you.
Saban's worried about is right now.
I don't agree with you because Nick Saban has produced a ton of NFL players that are succeeding just fine and making tons of money in the NFL. But let's say you're right. I'm going to assume that you're right. Why is it any particular college coach's responsibility to prepare his players to have long and illustrious careers in the NFL? He's paid to win there, and as long as they are getting an education off the field and they're productive on the field, and he's preparing them to get into the league.
That's true. But it's kind of funny, like I said before, that him and Belichick coached for the Browns.
Yep.
They separate, and now they're both dominating both leagues. Now, Bill Belichick has been investigated numerous of times for cheating.
Mm-hmm.
I won't be surprised down the road, and just mark my words, that both of them don't get caught in something. It's some collusion going on somewhere. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. But the truth always comes out to the light. That's all I'm just telling you that on that right now.
Okay, well, Belichick's already been caught numerous times.
Oh, what was that? I'm sorry.
Belichick's already been caught numerous times.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's kind of funny to me that both of them were on the same coaching staff, and they separated, and now they're both dominating different leagues, but in the same category of league. Kind of fun to me. That's all I'm saying. That's all I got to say about that. But
all right,
like everything.
Very good, Antonio.
And I know Alabama fans gonna get on here and say I'm delusional and all that. Well, I don't care. Whatever. Y'all need to worry about them 3 or 4 players that got hurt this game. Because Tua got hurt, Harris got hurt, your wide receiver, Water, whoever that was, number 11 got hurt, and then your defensive lineman got hurt. So they need to worry about that. Worry about finish off the season before y'all think y'all just the number 1 team in the nation right now. And
okay, Antonio.
You have a good one.
You as well. I appreciate the call.
All right.
Okay, the phone line's open. Call in. I don't even know where to start with that. I know Antonio's passionate. I know he was trying to make a few points. He was frustrated because LSU is very talented, but they were not able to compete in this game. They were not able to compete because there are some glaring differences between these two teams. LSU has a quarterback who is a fine quarterback, a fine player, but he needs help. Alabama has probably the best quarterback in college football. Alabama, for as good as LSU is along the offensive line, and some of those players will move on to the NFL. We will see. I can't go position by position on the LSU offensive line currently. In the past, I've been able to do that. Not familiar enough with every position along the offensive front for LSU. Those 2 or 3 of those guys will play significant time in the NFL. All right, we got another call coming in. This should be a good one. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Let's see who's on the line. Hey, DeAndre, how are you?
Good. What an amazing day in ACC. Also, not a funny betting, but Duke beating Miami. I saw that coming.
They're better swimmers, I guess.
Yeah. I didn't get a chance to watch the game, but I was listening to some of it on the radio, and I heard it was a rainfall down there.
Absolutely, it was a downpour.
You know what bothers me more? I heard you talking to the last gentleman, and it's great to have great fans like that. LSU, Bama, Miami, we all call in because the big shows ain't gonna take us on the phone like you will. And we appreciate that, and I don't know if we ever get a chance to tell you. But what bothers me about, like, people talk about LSU and Miami, I mean, it's hard to develop quarterbacks nowadays. Even the offensive line with the shortage of weeks that they got, shortage of time they got to practice nowadays. So it's hard to develop quarterbacks and offensive linemen like you used to. You know, that's why I think a lot of teams went to a more simplified passing games and stuff like that. But I just don't see what was so great about this kid that transferred to LSU from Ohio State. I mean, I don't think he did anything better than Harris or anybody else. I like LSU football. LSU's got a good program. But, I mean, they just really never had a great quarterback. When Nick Saban brought him back up to Providence when he was out there, I mean, they never really had great quarterbacks. It's always been great defense. It don't seem like they had developed an offensive system that fits today. I listened to the game, and I was telling somebody, I wish I would have headed and bet on that game by itself. But I said, I thought it was going to blow them out because they haven't shown the process to throw the ball down. And just like Miami, they haven't developed a quarterback on an offensive line. I mean, that's the problem with a lot of these teams. Clemson's just lucky that they had a bunch of seniors and a senior-led class, and they had somebody like Lawrence come in who ran the same offensive system while he was in high school, just like Deshaun Watson did, and just came in and was able to take it closer to the next level. But sometimes it's hard to figure out some of these quarterbacks when they come in from college. I mean, look at Perkins out of Virginia. Everybody was like, Virginia's going to beat, was going to beat Pitt. I was like, these guys really not that good if you make them throw the ball. So I was like, if Virginia played Clemson they're going to get slaughtered, and that's what Pete did, make him throw the ball. And he's a great player. I like the way he does it, but, I mean, it's hard to develop these quarterbacks. I mean, you got to give them time to develop. I remember in the 90s, Florida State in Florida, when they were running things, you know, it seemed like they always had a quarterback in wait. Like, he might have red-shirted, or he was a freshman, sophomore, and he waited till his junior year to take over, and then another quarterback rolled in. You just don't see that nowadays. You know, you got to have people that are going to come in right away and ready to play. And it's sad that it's like that, but you just don't see quarterbacks being developed like he used to. And that's why, you know, when people say, oh, look how great the SEC is. Tell me, outside of Tua, another great quarterback in the SEC. And somebody who might say Locke, but, I mean, he got shut down by Kentucky last week. And, you know, sometimes a lot of his big numbers come in against weak teams. So it's hard to develop good quarterbacks. And the ones that got them, like close to Alabama, and I don't know who else. I think the kid at Notre Dame is pretty good, but, you know, it's hard to develop these quarterbacks nowadays. I feel like I'm shocked how bad Washington is. And they have a pretty, personally, I thought it was a pretty good quarterback. But I know the kid for Georgia transferred up there, so it's going to be interesting to see how he was developed after being a year out of playing. So, you know, some of these fan bases didn't really love. You know, give their coaches some time and let's see these quarterbacks develop. But, you know, but nowadays, because of the Elite 11, a lot of these quarterbacks want to come in and play right away. So,
yeah, it's a good take, DeAndre. I don't have too much to add to that other than, yeah, there was a mentality across all positions as we were watching football growing up that the more experienced players typically played across the board, especially at quarterback, because there was more to process and it was a more cerebral position that required more thinking and decision making. Therefore, you wanted to play the senior or the junior, and typically you developed quarterbacks in their freshman and sophomore seasons or a redshirt season, and you see less of that because these kids are promised the world coming out of high school, and therefore they're promised that they'll be able to compete right out of the gate and given an opportunity to win the job. I do think that these Elite 11 type camps, and that's just the one that's popular. There are zillions of quarterback camps out there, develop these quarterbacks more quickly than in the past. So these kids arrive on campus, and you can't replace competing against collegiate level athletes, but they still come in with a huge knowledge base as compared to what was the case 30 years ago. Right. These kids play a lot more football, and they study it a lot more, and they're in these camps a lot more and developed by high-level coaches a lot more than they used to be early on.
If Florida come back from Missouri, or did Missouri end up winning that game?
Missouri killed them by 21 points.
Wow. I don't see, I mean, I know Florida problem. Their quarterback can't throw it down the field. I mean, if you sit on their routes and stuff, I mean, he can't throw it down the field. But I don't see how NC State, you know, we living in North Carolina, I know this. NC State recruits a lot of players inside the state of North Carolina. And everybody knows North Carolina's not really a football powerhouse. I mean, you know, I know they have players like Julius Peppers and Hope come out of here and play. I mean, you know, around the state. You know, Lawrence Taylor wasn't even from here. I mean, he had Notre Means and people like that. But
Notre Means, you're going back.
Yeah.
So
I'm just saying, I don't see how these Florida. I don't reason why Florida is not like they used to be, because Central Florida, South Florida, probably taking a lot of their players that they would have been on their 2 deep. But it ain't no excuse for Florida State or Florida. Florida State got the most undisciplined team I've seen all year. I watched that Florida State game. It's like they picked up right where they left off against Cooks, and they didn't change anything after they lost to Clemson. I mean, I thought it was gonna come out with more fight, because I betted on that game. And I thought, I'm like, yeah, Florida State will come out and give NC State a game. they ain't going to lose more than about 15 points. I think the spread was like 9 or something. And they just absolutely look terrible. I just can't figure it out. And you know, and people always say, y'all pick it on Miami. It is all up there. I think Miami has a fine program. And one day they'll be back. I hate they say they need to get rid of Mark Richt after 2 years. And they ran the other guy, Ghost, who turned around people. They ran him out of town. You know, sometimes you got to give people time to develop these guys and start trying to run it. I mean, Miami, you'll never see what you saw in the 90s with Miami and Florida State again, because there's too many other schools. There's too many other schools who say, hey, I want to go there. Even USC, what they did in the 2000s, you'll never see people stockpile talent like that. Even Clemson. I mean, I just don't see it going on forever, because there's going to be somebody else saying, hey, why should I go over there and sit on a bench at Clemson, Alabama, when I could go to Wake Forest to play, I can go to somewhere else to play. You know, and that's what you're going to start seeing. Like, why should I sit on the bench? There are too many other places that you can go. I mean, to play football, but it was those huge Miami and Florida State to lose like that to Duke and State. I mean, I don't really think have that many 3 or 5-star players on that team. I mean, I know Texas does a good job of red shirting players and stuff like that, but they shouldn't be beating Miami like that. The leadership in NC State, so NC State, you know, they got some nice talent, but you know, they're still not on the level of talent that Florida State has. So I was kind of disappointed to see what happened today. I think I lost money on it, but I didn't really catch it. I think they're going to have him in the short league. He's going to be gone after next year if it don't turn around. But these Cam Akers I heard about Cam Akers all last year. When it came out, Cam Akers, like, go play in the NFL right now. And he absolutely did nothing this year. And they were like, he had 4,000 yards last year, this year. And I was insane. I was just line there with their last year. So that's when he get out. So now the Mark Richt and not Mark Richt. What's the guy that went up this year and Taylor went to different systems? I just don't get why he's struggling. I mean, there should be so much better than what they are.
Yep.
I can't tell you why. They got tall receivers. I thought that was going to be because, you know, I was only like, he's pretty good this year. I mean, I'm sure you can tell you that. You know,
I thought they'd go 8-4.
Yeah, I mean, not barely. You know, you still got Florida and I think Boston College on their schedule. You know, you might not make a bowl this year after 35 years.
They don't look like a bowl team to me, and that's not saying much.
No.
All right, DeAndre, we've got a few other people trying to get in here. If you've got anything else for me.
No. You know, man, I love the show, and I appreciate you letting us call in, Mark. You have a great day, man, and I keep on listening to the show. And you have a great night. Take it towards the night. Take for one right now. So we'll see what they do. These Boston College in the code. You have a great night, Mark, and thanks for letting me call in, sir. I
appreciate that, DeAndre. You have a great night as well. Our man DeAndre, a big Clemson fan, also watches the ACC in particular. Thought Florida State was going to be better this year. So did I. I didn't think they would be great. I didn't think they would challenge Clemson. I thought they would be in the NC State in what used to be the Louisville classification, 8-4. But Willie Taggart not doing the job this year. Of course, this shouldn't affect his job status. Not this year. It's his first year, but it's kind of alarming to see them continue to struggle and regress and play worse and worse and worse and not get the offense figured out. And I think the defense has finally given up. The defense was playing well considering the circumstances for quite a few weeks. And now it seems as though based on today's results, based on what I saw and based on the score and the productivity of the North Carolina State offense, that the Florida State offense or defense may have said, hey, we've done enough here. We've got a call coming in. Hopefully I caught it in time. And then I want to address some of the comments on the live chat that are a bit ridiculous. This is MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hello?
Yeah. What's going on?
Hey, this is Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Colorado.
Hey, how are you?
Good, man. Just love what I saw today from college football.
What do you like?
Oh, man, I didn't know Alabama was going to pitch that shutout like that. I thought LSU was going to get at least a field goal or a touchdown, but man, that was a statement. Clemson, Notre Dame, Michigan. I will say Ohio State, but coming off a bye week, struggling against Nebraska at home in the shoe, didn't look good.
Yeah, Ohio State doesn't look like they're prepared to contend for a national championship. Unless things change drastically with them, it doesn't appear as though they're going to be able to take on Michigan here with a positive result here in 3 weeks. Michigan looks like the class of the conference. They've already disposed of Wisconsin easily, Penn State easily, Michigan State easily, and now Michigan or Ohio State's the only team left on the board.
You're right. And, like, as far as the Big Ten goes, so I got Michigan beating Ohio State.
Sure.
And I guess, who do we have in the other conference? Is it Iowa?
Northwestern controls the division right now.
Who is?
Northwestern controls the division right now.
Northwestern. Wow.
They're 5-1.
Okay, I think Michigan would run through them. I mean, I still got to see Michigan beat Ohio State because it hasn't happened in, what, 14 years? 15? I don't know. It's more than 15 years.
So excluding the year that Luke Fickell was the interim coach, that was the year Michigan won in 2011. Other than that, they haven't won since 2003.
Oh, okay, got you. Okay, yep, nice stats.
You do understand that Michigan and Northwestern did play this year, and Michigan squeaked out a 20-17 win about 4 weeks ago.
20-17?
Yep.
Wow, and that was in Northwestern, huh?
Yeah, it was on the road. Yep.
See, I didn't even know that. I guessed that because if that was in Michigan, it would probably been something like 40-10.
Wow. You need to inform Vegas. You need to call up Vegas and have them adjust those lines. So Michigan only winning at Northwestern by 3 would win by 30 in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, in Ann Arbor. And they
wow.
got a big house, 115,000 seats.
Okay. I didn't realize that there was that much of a difference.
I think as far as Clemson goes, because everyone, and I'm only calling them out because everybody keeps saying they're the only team that can go against us. I feel like you're only as good as your conference. And if you're playing, and if Syracuse is the next team after you, and I don't know much about Boston College, maybe you can fill me in. I don't know anything about Boston College. I don't know if they're going to come out there and score a field goal or what when they play them next week. But that conference is extremely weak.
Yep.
And when they try to come in there and you've been playing patty cake with, Syracuse, who probably should have beat you, in Louisville, who needs to fire their coach immediately. That dude is terrible because they got talent. Florida State, who is playing on the moon right now somewhere, kicking moon rocks around. I don't know what Florida State's doing. And then when they try to step into the playoffs and play Bama or probably Michigan or, just a real team. Like, I would love to see Clemson in Death Valley tonight. I mean, I think Sunshine, the quarterback, gets his head taken off a few times, and then he's mentally out the game. Clemson Tua won that game with one leg.
Well, Tua had a lot of help. The rest of the team was better than LSU as well.
Correct.
He's a great quarterback. I think he's the best quarterback in college football. So I'm right there with you. I'm just saying that you can't compare his performance, let's say, against Joe Burrow's. And I'm not comparing Burrow and Tua. Tua is much better than Burrow at this point and may always be. I'm just saying that he had the luxury of protection and a running game. LSU didn't run for 1 yard per carry. Joe Burrow had no run support. He had no chance. He had nothing.
I mean, you know what? I heard somebody say it in the comment section or the live chat. It really wasn't Joe Burrow. Really, he's a game manager. He's a better passer than Jalen Hurts. But
absolutely.
The O-line, and I'm not even clowning their O-line. I'm not even going to talk bad about their O-line. And they're kind of banged up in LSU right now. I'm talking about Bama's D-line. You see, dude, I could have swore. I don't know how close you watched that game.
I watched it.
There was a lot of holding going on that was not called, and Quinn Williams was manhandling that O-line. Like, he was the quickest way to the quarterback is through the middle.
Yeah.
And he was coming through the middle.
Yep.
So, I think when Clemson makes it to the playoffs, they're going to get smoked. They're going to get smoked, man. They haven't played any real competition besides Texas A&M and Syracuse. And me and you both know how good they are.
Yeah, so I was going to bring up the Texas A&M game, that they did go to Texas A&M and they got taken to the wire. They barely escaped. But you got to realize that's one game.
I would play Texas A&M at Kyle Field any day over LSU and Death Valley any day, even with Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, well, you're skipping around years, so I'm not going to compare. I'm not going to lump all that together and say every LSU team's better than every Texas A&M team. Yeah, LSU is generally better than Texas A&M this year. Based on what I saw today versus what Texas A&M was able to do against Alabama in Tuscaloosa, Texas A&M gave Alabama a much more difficult time. That was a one-score game starting into the third quarter. They played them almost even for a half, and then they got into the third quarter, and that was a 21-13 game. They could score. They could move the ball. They could do something against Bama. Then it finally got out of hand.
True. And I got one more thing to say. I'll let somebody else call in. This goes, and I watch a lot of college football. Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Notre Dame. You remember Ohio State? Who was it this year? There's a pattern. Ohio State was kind of squeaking by some teams.
Yep.
And then, bam, they got exposed by Purdue. Notre Dame is squeaking by some teams, man. Ball State, Pittsburgh. I know they covered today, but still, they kind of squeaked by Northwestern. It was not a decisive victory like a Clemson over a Louisville or a Bama, in Death Valley. They're going to get exposed, man. Notre Dame fans, you will get exposed. You're probably going to lose to Syracuse. But you can't keep squeaking by. Good teams show you they're good teams when they pound teams into the ground like they're supposed to do it. Top 3 teams. For Notre Dame, I'm not a believer. All right, Mark.
Thanks for the call, man. I appreciate it.
Yep.
You have a great Sunday.
All
right. Good call there from an Alabama fan, I believe. And it's impossible to ignore or discount Alabama dominance. I will say, if Sense of Tumor's still on the live chat, I see a lot of comments on the live chat, and you guys are college football fans. I'm a college football fan. We're biased. We're going to say things that are ridiculous. All that. I love the trash talk. That's why we're here, as long as you guys are respectful of one another and don't cross those obvious lines of name calling and bringing any kind of racial, gender, politics, religion, anything like that into it. Hey, go nuts. Have fun with each other. Get into it. But when they're just overtly illogical, inconsistent, and non-factual comments, sometimes in the chat, I have to call those out. So Sense of Tumor was making comments about Ohio State producing bad NFL players. Now that's obviously a joke. Either Sense of Tumor, you don't know what you're talking about, and maybe that's the case. Maybe you don't follow the NFL, so you don't know how well they play in the NFL, or you're just trash talking just to stir people up and push buttons, and you're probably doing that. But if that's a sincere comment, then yeah, you need to either call me and I will run down the list of the accomplishments of Ohio State players versus any other school you want to compare it to. You can take any other school, and I would guess that you would take Alabama, and we would compare Ohio State players in the NFL currently and recently versus Alabama players or whatever school you want to take. And I don't think it would be much of a fair fight. So, yeah, Ohio State's current team can easily be criticized. They're not playing well. They were trashed at Purdue against a decent team, but not really a good or elite team in Purdue. Purdue's a decent team. They're a top 35 or 40 team. They're a decent team, but Ohio State should not lose by 29 points at Purdue, and they looked awful, and they've even looked awful winning games. So there is no excuse based on the recruiting classes and the talent on the roster for Ohio State to be playing this poorly. So this team is not prepared to win a Big Ten championship and then get to the college football playoff the way it's playing right now. If Ohio State continues to play like it is right now, they'll probably go to East Lansing Saturday and lose. And even if they squeak by that game, they are going to get obliterated by Michigan in a similar fashion to Penn State, Michigan State, and Wisconsin, because right now Ohio State's playing about as good as Penn State, Michigan State, and Wisconsin this year. They're playing like a team that's not one of the 10 best teams in the country, like they're rated right now. They're playing like a barely top 25 team. That's what they're playing like. And Michigan will beat them 38-10. That's what it looks like. Don't be surprised if we see something different 3 weeks from now in Columbus. We've seen this play out way too many times throughout the years in this series, whether that was Michigan being dominant during the season and losing to an Ohio State team that was less than dominant or vice versa. It's happened in both directions, and that happens in rivalry games. Maybe a little bit more so than other games. I'm not one of these believers in just because it's a rivalry game, it's going to be close and you can have a bad team and a good team and throw out the records. Now, I don't believe in the whole throw out the records. The better team almost always wins, but there is something about a rivalry game that makes it different. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
This is the Beast. How are you doing?
The Beast. I'm doing just fine. How are you?
Man, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good.
Good. Quite a day of college football.
Yes, the day of college football. I just got back from the game.
Oh, where'd you go?
I went to the UAB game.
Okay, that's right, UAB. So
Yeah,
tell me about the Blazers, how they look tonight.
Oh, they look phenomenal. They put up 52 points against 3. They broke records. They win next week to clinch the division, go to the championship for the first time ever. They look really good tonight, and I know Texas A&M looked really bad today, and I think they can beat Texas A&M in 2 weeks. I really think they can.
Did you see the Texas A&M game?
Yes, I did.
Did you? You thought they looked bad?
Yes, sir. Not on offense, not bad, but defense, they're just they should have lost that game.
Oh, they shouldn't have lost the game. That's the thing. They
shouldn't have lost
played
that game.
better for 50-some minutes until there was 7 minutes on the clock, and Kellen Mond threw that interception up by 10 points with 7 minutes left. They were the much better team on the field, but they blew it. Yeah, and the defense gave up those last 2 drives. So I'm looking up your team right now because I just wanted to check out the line score against Texas San Antonio here. So 52-3, you're up 38-3 at half. Your quarterback, Tyler Johnston, is he a pretty good player?
Yes, his first start. Our starter got hurt.
Oh, okay.
That Texas game. He played last week. He struggled, and he didn't play this week.
All right.
He's a really good quarterback too. He can run. He can throw.
Mm-hmm.
Our special teams look really good tonight. We blocked another punt and almost had another one.
Okay. You rushed for 419 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Yes, sir. That's a school record.
Wow. 668 yards of total offense compared to 220. Yeah, so you were pretty dominant. in this game, no doubt. All right, and you got Texas A&M, you say in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Okay. I'll be watching out for that game.
I don't think it's going to be a blowout like everybody's thinking. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be at least a 7-point game. It's not going to be no blowout.
Oh, I don't think it's going to be a blowout either.
I know you're probably going to pick Texas A&M. How close do you think it'll be?
Oh, let's see. Texas A&M and UAB. I know we talked about this either last week or the week before, and I was looking at your schedule trying to get a read, and it was difficult for me to get a read because you didn't have a Power 5 game. All right, let me throw out a score. Don't hold me to this. I'm going to say Texas A&M wins this game. How about 38-24?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good score. I mean, to start off with, but
okay,
we'll just see how the game goes. But I don't think it's going to be a blowout.
I don't consider 38-24 a blowout.
I'm going to probably go with 34-31.
Okay. All right.
I know that's a huge prediction, but so yeah, if we win next week, that'll be our first division title in school history, and we will host the conference championships. So I mean, from being shut down 2 years ago to this is pretty phenomenal. But
it is.
I mean, nobody respects it. Nobody respects UAB. I mean, I don't know why. I mean, they got good players, but I think if they beat Texas A&M, it's going to shock everybody.
So understand when I ask these questions, I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I'm trying to get a real answer here. So when you say nobody respects UAB, what kind of respect are you looking for? What gives you indication that people don't respect UAB?
Like some of the people on ESPN I've seen not UAB, like they're not respecting UAB to win these games by much, and they're going out here blowing people out, and it's stuff like that. And people saying UAB was not going to do good this year, and they're doing good, and they still don't respect them as a good team. And I just don't see why some people don't respect them.
Okay. All right, and it appears as though there's a number of teams that you could play in the conference championship game. That still has yet to be decided between Middle Tennessee, Florida International. Both have one loss in the conference, and you've got Charlotte and Marshall, both at 3-2.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll probably be Middle Tennessee. FIU got crap kicked out about FAU tonight. I don't know what happened with that. They should have won that game.
So, yeah, Middle Tennessee has UTEP, and then they play Kentucky on the road. Then they've got so they finish up the season against you guys. So they could play back-to-back weeks?
Yeah, it's pretty. It's going to be pretty close.
Interesting.
Last couple of weeks.
Okay.
Now, I want to get your reaction on Florida just getting knocked out by Missouri.
Well, I didn't see the game. I do know that anytime I see a Vegas line and it seems kind of odd, I'm a bit intrigued, and that was the case. And I was the sucker who said Florida was going to win by more than 6, just because I figured, man, this is a battle-tested Florida team based on everything that they've faced. And I know that they had a huge game and a big letdown against Georgia, and that may affect them this week. We saw that it did not affect Georgia, certainly. They were playing at home in a difficult place to play. Missouri had yet to win a game in the SEC. I believe they came in at 0-3 or 0-4 in the SEC. And I was just trying to compare Florida's defense being somewhat comparable to Kentucky's, and Kentucky's really held down Drew Lock and the running game. So I thought, wow, they've got to go on the road. They couldn't beat Kentucky at home. They couldn't really mount much offense against Kentucky. Now they've got to go to the Swamp and take on Florida's offense. And Felipe Franks is not great, but he's getting better. And I just thought Florida would win, not in any kind of a blowout, but I thought they'd win by 10 points. I didn't see the game. It was on the SEC network. There were much more competitive and more important games that I was watching at 3:30, so I didn't watch the game. I'll look at the highlights. I try to look at every box score and every recap in the country, and so that's what I do into the wee hours on Sunday morning. So I will do that with Florida and Missouri. Did you have a chance to see any of it?
A little bit of it.
Okay. What were your impressions?
Florida's defense didn't show up at all. I just don't think they showed up. I think they were hungover from last week, and they just didn't want to play.
Yeah, it sure looked like it.
Yeah, I wanna give a shout out to the UTEP football team. They finally won a game. They ended the longest losing streak in the country by 21 games, and they finally get their first win.
Okay.
Give them a shout out for that.
Yeah, so UTEP, of course, as you mentioned, they went 0-12 last year, and I knew as of a couple weeks ago they hadn't won a game yet, even though I found it kind of interesting that one of their offensive linemen was a pretty high pick in the NFL draft, like end of the first round, beginning of the second round this past year, but they had lost 21 straight. So who did they beat?
They beat Rice, and Rice has lost, like, I think 19 straight.
Okay, so they've taken over the ownership of the worst losing streak in the country, the longest losing streak. Okay. Yeah, thanks for letting us know about that, because I had been tracking that and had forgotten to check on UTEP today. But so they finally got a win. What was the score? Was it a close game?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. I didn't get to check the score, but it was a close game. I think it was about 3 points.
Okay, let's see here. UTEP. So Rice and UTEP. And yeah, so we had a final score. 34-26.
Yeah, that's pretty good game.
Rice has actually won a game this year.
They have? Okay, yeah, they have.
They beat Prairie View, the first game of the season.
It was a home game, wasn't it?
Yeah, they've lost the last 9.
Yeah.
All right, Beast. We appreciate your call. Man. You have yourself a great weekend. Of course. Weekend. Yeah, keep us up to date on UAB. I will be watching that Conference USA Championship game, as I always do.
All right, man. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Go Blazers.
I love when I get a UAB call. Not just specifically UAB. I just can appreciate college football fans who root for a group of 5 team or a team that's not readily available on TV, and they can be that passionate about it. That earns my respect. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Mark, it's Mark Stevens. What's going on?
Not too much. How you doing?
Oh, I'm getting better. I'm playing FIFA and get my mind off of things. You know?
Yeah. That didn't turn out exactly the way I thought. I thought Alabama would win, but I was geared up for a competitive game.
I don't even know what, because even though I spent in absorbing an amount of time on chat boards defending my Tigers.
Yeah.
Because wearing my purple and gold cape. I didn't think they were going to win this game. Even in defensive, though, I was like, well, they're not going to win. Let's qualify with that. And when you're starting an argument that way, like, it's saying something in the first place about who you think is the better team. Now, on offense, for them to get completely neutralized, like, I gotta give kudos to Bama's D-line. They when you on the offensive line cannot stop the other team's defensive line from pretty much wrecking the game, then pretty quickly you're not going to belong on the field. LSU's offense didn't even get to play. I don't even know if they really even need to take a shower. Just the amount of plays that Bama had compared to the amount of offensive plays that LSU had, there's probably a big disparity there. And the defense played okay. They held their own for a while. They didn't look like some of these other teams playing Bama, but yeah, that's as far as you can go, as far as like, dealing out compliments to LSU. Tua got his 300-yard passing, and he didn't throw for 70% or whatever, but you look like the real deal. Like, I'm pulling for Georgia because I root for the other team when I see Bama playing. So I hope Georgia does better. I like Georgia's O-line, and I'm like jumping over a few games, going straight to the SEC championship. But yeah, I like Georgia's O-line against Bama's D-line, and I'm not saying they have an advantage. I'm saying that they will at least belong on the field. I think. But yeah, and like to you guys, like let's talk about being accurate in like placing the blame here. Like as far as LSU goes, first of all, Bama is Bama, so let's get that out of the way. Like people like to make the phrase of did we lose this game or did they win this game? Because Bama won this game. Made no mistake about that. So when we're like trying to say, Ed Orgeron can't coach or LSU's offensive line can't block. Most offensive lines are going to look like they can't block against Bama's defensive line. So there's that qualifier.
I agree.
Now, if you really want to find some blame here, first of all, I've deflected blame away from Joe Burrow. Like people tried to say that Joe Burrow, didn't belong in this game or is just not a good enough quarterback. There are a lot of quarterbacks that are good enough quarterbacks or above that would have looked pretty bad in this game. And Joe didn't even look bad. He just didn't have much opportunity to play ball, if you ask me.
I agree.
If Joe would have came out there with Ohio State, then I know Ohio State's been having trouble, but I have a feeling that he would have at least been able to have his say in the game and make some passes, do something. But he came out there dressed in purple and gold. That didn't work out.
Just look at the number of batted passes and the number of passes that were altered at the line of scrimmage versus anything that he's faced this year. And he's even faced very good defensive fronts in Miami, Auburn, Florida, Mississippi State. Yes. Excellent example there with Sweat and Simmons. All those are formidable defensive lines. Those are for the top 15 defensive lines in the country, especially, again, Mississippi State and Auburn. And he wasn't it was like he was ambushed. He just didn't have a chance most of the time.
And then, when he did get a pass off, he gave us a shot. There weren't too many balls where dude, what are you doing? There were balls from Anthony Jennings and Brandon Harris.
Yeah.
Where you're legitimately what are you doing?
Mm-hmm. I know.
And the thing that kills me about those teams is those are way better teams than this LSU team this year. Those teams that had Leonard Fournette and I don't know, Easton Posick or there were a lot of NFL guys on those teams, and the quarterback play was nowhere close to complimenting them at all. And I think this season we have a decent quarterback, but there are no explosive players on LSU's offense right now. There's nobody where it's dude, that guy, make sure you get a bid on him, otherwise we're cooked. Nobody like that. So you can't really blame anybody for that. You blame recruiting or whatever, but I mean, there are some 5-star receivers on LSU's roster. They're just young. It's not their time right now.
Do you think Burrow is better than Danny Etling?
Yes, but it's not because Danny Etling throws in particularly inaccurate ball. It's because I think Joe Burrow, and I'm gonna be frank, I think Joe Burrow just has more balls than Danny Etling does.
Mm-hmm.
He got the guts to trust his arm and trust what he sees and make a pass. And it might look risky. I saw he completed a pass today in between 5 Alabama defenders. He's gonna shoot his shot. He's gonna try. And I think a lot of times Danny Etling last year, he just wasn't ever gonna win you a game. He wasn't gonna even try to win you a game. He was gonna go out there and facilitate the offense to the best of his ability. And I hate to say it that way. It kind of sounds blunt. Maybe it's not fair to him, but yeah, if you're in the foxhole with Danny Etling, you're gonna be looking at somebody else to to lead you out of the tough situation. But when it's Joe Burrow, he's gonna lead the way. He's gonna carry the torch, carry the flag, and for better or worse, he's gonna try. That interception he threw in the fourth, hey, he got those ball in the end zone. We gotta get some points on the board. You gotta do something. So I blame him, but at the same time, it's but I would have done the same thing, or I would have tried. So
when I see situations like that, Lamar, it reminds me of a comment Brett Favre made after a playoff game in which the Packers were destroyed by the Rams when the Rams were flying high with Kurt Warner and on their way to a Super Bowl. And Brett Favre threw 5 interceptions in a game that was like 52-28. He threw up a ton of yards and a ton of attempts, and he was their only prayer to win the game. And he was asked about all the interceptions he threw, but he knew that if I don't take chances, if I don't take risks, we have no shot in this. So I can't play conservative. And at that point in the game, Joe Burrow's just trying to make something happen. And yeah, it's not like it was a no-score game or a 3-0 game in the second quarter, and he's making that mistake. They're buried at that point, and he's just trying to make a play.
I see people pointing out oh, he's got 6 touchdowns, 4 INTs. Okay, yeah. And if you don't watch LSU play, yeah, that looks bad. Well, I watch LSU play. We've got a bunch of possession receivers right now. We have nobody that's gonna really take the top off the defense.
Yeah.
And when he is passing well, he's passing the ball, he's getting us first downs, keeping us ahead of the chain. And then we get in the red zone and we kind of run it in. And they're like, "Oh, LSU's one-dimensional." We're actually no-dimensional, to tell you the truth. that's how I see this team. Some teams are balanced. We're no-dimensional, and no-dimensional kind of works out as looking like balanced against against a bad defense, but against a good defense, no-dimensional looks no-dimensional. You're not going anywhere. So yeah, they just need work, man. Bama is not going to lose to an incomplete team. And LSU's been an incomplete team for a while now. I got out of the 8th grade and got into high school, went through college, went through grad school, and now I'm almost 30. And LSU has been an incomplete team the entire time. So.
Yes, they have been.
Yeah.
They've got to be one of the more frustrating teams for their fan base than most teams in the country.
I hear some of the other callers from earlier. I'm begging you to save them. Dude, you know how they feel right now. You just let them cook themselves. It's all fun.
It is. It's when it comes right down to it, it's all just supposed to be fun, and we all take it very seriously and want our teams to win, and that's why we're sitting up at 1 o'clock in the morning talking college football after we watched it all day. But yeah, when it comes right down to it, it's a game. It's a game, and you want your team to show out and give you some pride, but it doesn't always work out. And as you mentioned, I think you started out the conversation by basically saying it's more about Bama than it is LSU. And yes, LSU could get better. They need to get better. They're in the same division with this monster, so they have to deal with them. But line up almost any team in the country, and you would have seen the same result tonight.
Are we ready to forgive Hugh Freeze yet? I'm ready to. What did he even do again? I'm being facetious, but I think Hugh Freeze is a good guy. Let's get him as an offensive coordinator. How about him and Lane Kiffin? We want to be the first team with 2 offensive coordinators.
Who is Hugh Freeze working for? He got a job with somebody.
Really?
He got some kind of an offensive consultant job with someone. I got to look that up.
Huh. He might not be on Bama staff. I don't be so mad.
They're where
that would
is
be something Bama does. Bama is like a crusade. You if you've done something wrong as a coach, you go to Bama, and then God forgives your sins, and then you can coach again.
Well, yeah, it's like Bill Belichick in the NFL, that the Patriots think that they can take anybody in and they're going to be able to, put them on the straight and narrow. And there's no way that anybody's going to, enter the Patriots sanctuary and ever go amiss or a foul, so that they can handle any kind of wrong behavior. Oh, okay. He is okay. Starting in 2019, Hugh Freeze will be the offensive coordinator for the Arizona Hotshots of the whatever league that is. I know I heard this recently. It's some kind of new league. I can't find it here. Yeah.
It's not. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's not the XFL. It's like this other league there.
The newly formed Alliance of American Football.
There you go.
Whatever that is.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think he'll be there long. I think.
Yeah, he's just looking to. Just looking to put himself out there.
Because what he did, it's deplorable, but at the same time, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that bad. It just looks bad. He made himself look bad, really bad. And he made Ole Miss look dumb too, but.
Yeah, he made himself look dumb, and he made himself look unethical from a standpoint of being a family man and what he purported to be a Christian man. But in regards to running a football program, it's not quite as weighty as maybe it was made out to be.
Not like Art Browns. Like you can't
no.
hire Art Browns.
No.
You can't hire DJ Durkin. We found that out. But I think you can hire Hugh Freeze in a year or two. It'll be okay. But yeah, I'll let you go. I'll close out on who I think has the best shot at beating Bama.
Okay.
And I think, hear this awkward silence right here. This is something. This actually means something.
You're not coming up with anyone.
I guess I want to say Clemson, but something about Clemson seems false to me. I don't know what it is. I like the defensive line, but they look like Mississippi State with a better offense, as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, Clemson.
So I agree. I may want to see a little bit more out of Michigan, but I got to think it's Clemson. Not just based on what I've seen on the field, but based on what I know about the roster and the defensive talent and the quarterback who can, if he grows up, and that's not a knock on him. I don't mean he needs to grow up. I mean, he's just a freshman. That if he gets some,
I just don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to do as far as the offensive line goes, because I feel like they do kind of play people straightforward, and they just try to, for lack of a better word, out athlete teams. Like, hey, we have better guys than you, and eventually it's going to show. Like, we're going to be faster than you, or we're going to make this catch, and kind of like Georgia does. Yeah, I think either Clemson or maybe Oklahoma, because they can score a lot of points. But their defense is so awful that
it is.
Second Bama stops them a couple of times. It's going to be bad.
Yeah, I never really trust teams like that. I just think it has.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
All right, man. You have a great weekend. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks.
All right, guys. I've got the phones line. That would be the phone line open at 860-325-3687. It's been a long day, I think, for all of us. All right. Otherwise, I'm going to catch the last few minutes of Washington State Cal. I believe Washington State just scored. It was 13-all with about 8 minutes to play. Cal was driving, and I think they turned it over in the red zone, and Washington State's driving down the field. This was an awful day for my predictions. On paper, not horrible, pretty bad, but not horrible. But on the financial ledger, awful. So at least Texas Tech covered the 13.5 tonight. That was good to see. And I don't know what's going on right now with Washington and Stanford. That game should be over. It's funny when teams drop out of the top 25, it's like they rid them from the bottom line. They only scroll their scores once every 5 hours. If you're outside the top 25, you're suddenly have been vanquished from college football. But Washington and Stanford played a very important game tonight. And I know that Washington had a nice lead in that game, and they probably won pretty handily. It was 21-0. Yeah, so it was only 27-23. So nice little victory for me, taking Stanford in 10. Okay, I'll take that too. So Stanford did come back and make it a game against Washington, but the Huskies won 27-23. They are now 5-2 in the Pac-12. Stanford falls to 3-3. So this is all setting up a game for the Pac-12 North Division between Washington and Washington State in the Apple Cup game. Washington beat Stanford. Okay. Jake Browning, 16-27 for $194 and a touchdown. Did not throw an interception. Myles Gaskin ran for 148 yards. Bryce Love, 18 for 71. It's unfortunate Bryce Love just was not able to follow up his near Heisman season with anything close to it this year. Injuries, poor offensive line play, and they were just kind of taken out of the mix in weeks 3 and 4. Stanford, and we haven't really heard from Bryce Love. He's had nothing close to the season he had last year. Bryce Love is only averaging 4.5 yards per carry. So also understand that Stanford has played 9 games. For 9 games into the season, we only have 3 left. They will not get to the Pac-12 championship game. They'll play a bowl game most likely. They're 5-4, although they still have difficult games coming up against the likes of Cal and whoever they've got next week. But they should eke out another win to finish it at least with 6 wins. But Stanford's 5-4, so they only have 3 games left. Bryce Love's only run for 419 yards this year after running for over 2,100 last year with 19 touchdowns, and he has 3 this season. So Bryce Love obviously played himself out of the Heisman race early on, and Stanford wasn't able to run block for him. And maybe he was a bit overrated. I know in watching him, he has those few explosive plays every game or most games, and the rest of the time, he doesn't necessarily drag tacklers or make some of the kind of runs that we see other backs making across the country, in which he needs something. He needs a seam. He needs a crease, and we see other backs that have nothing, and they'll at least push the pile 2.5, 3 yards. Bryce Love doesn't do that. All right, folks, it's been a great day of college football. Statements made. Michigan, they're on their revenge tour. They have trounced Wisconsin, who beat them by 14 points last year. They trounced Michigan State after Michigan State, of course, beat them again last year. And today they made up for a 42-13 win that Penn State put on them last year by trouncing Trace McSorley and company 42-7, only averting a shutout with the last minute touchdown by Penn State. And they have 1 left to go on the revenge tour. That's Ohio State in 3 weeks. Statement number 2, Alabama, 29-0 against a team that we all felt deserved to be ranked in the top 5 in the country, and maybe still deserve to be ranked, even though they're going to be pushed down the rankings. Definitely a top 10 team in LSU on the road, and Alabama crushed them 29-0. The game was never in doubt. Once they scored that first touchdown, and especially after they put that field goal on the board to make it 9-0, I just felt, how in the world they could play 3 games? When is LSU going to score twice to get back in this game? Statement number 3, Georgia going up against Kentucky, what had been the best scoring defense in college football, and running the ball down their throats, containing the Kentucky running game with Benny Snell. Kentucky, I thought, really competed for most of the first half, and then it just caved in on them. And Georgia, just with the explosive athletes and being able to make chunk plays in the pass game and the running game on offense, just showed the disparity in the 2 programs right now. Kentucky's still legit. They're still good. They're still one of the top 15 or 20 teams in the country, but Georgia is maybe that team, or Clemson's that team that could possibly on a given day challenge Alabama. Besides those two and maybe Michigan, that's all I see potentially challenging Alabama. I'm not talking about Alabama's A game and Michigan, Clemson, or Georgia's A game. I'm talking about Alabama's C game and Clemson, Georgia, or Michigan's A game challenging Alabama. It's Alabama, Georgia for a rematch in the SEC championship game. It's Clemson versus who knows. Pitt leads the Coastal Division. They control the Coastal Division at 5-4, but they've only lost one game in the conference. Can you imagine Clemson and Pitt in the ACC championship game? Michigan looks like the odds-on favorite to win the Big Ten East, although they have to dispose of Ohio State. So it's either Michigan, Ohio State versus who knows out of the Big Ten Western Division, although Northwestern, as I mentioned to a caller tonight, despite the 4 losses total, they've only lost one game in the Big Ten, and they, at 5-1, control the Big Ten Western Division. Oklahoma survives Lubbock. They move on with only 1 loss in the conference. They join West Virginia as the only 2 one-loss teams within the conference in the Big 12. And, of course, the top 2 teams make it to the Big 12 championship game. The Sooners and the Mountaineers play on the final day of the regular season before they may rematch the next week in the Pac-12 championship game. Right now, we see Washington State struggling with Cal. It's a 13-all game with a few minutes left. And Washington State controls the Pac-12 North Division, but they have to run into Washington, their arch nemesis, who bludgeons them just about every year. And the Huskies, with a win over the Cougars head-to-head on the final weekend, would win the Pac-12 North and take on the winner of the Pac-12 South, which is now completely up for grabs. And I made mention of this earlier this week, that completely off the radar was that although Utah had defeated USC head-to-head and appeared to be the best team and the first-place team in the Pac-12 South, that here lurking near the bottom of the standings was Arizona State at 2-3 in the Pac-12. And if Arizona State was able to jump up and beat Utah head-to-head, they would then tie Utah for first place and tie them for losses in the Pac-12 Conference and, of course, own the head-to-head. Well, the final score today from Tempe was Arizona State 38, Utah 20. Arizona State now controls the Pac-12 South Division. That's my recap on the conference races. Stay tuned later today for my college football top 25 that actually makes sense. I will deliver to you the rankings as the way they should be. And it appeared to have resonated with people, and people responded well. So I guess I will, again, this week predict what the college football playoff rankings will be on Tuesday night, as well as I was inspired by the performance of Pitt in defeating Virginia and taking control of the Coastal Division with 4 losses overall, that I was looking through college football history, recent college football history, for those teams that have won division championships and gone to major Power 5 conference championship games with ugly records. So look out for that video a little bit later this week as well. We will preview and predict all the big games. And before I leave us, let's check out Week 11 real quick. I have no idea who's playing. Week 11. What do we have? Of course, the Macs in action on Tuesday and Wednesday night. Then on Thursday night, we've got North Carolina State hosting Wake. On Friday, we've got Louisville at Syracuse, which would normally be an interesting game. And think it was only 2 years ago that Louisville went to Syracuse and Lamar Jackson scored like 85 touchdowns and Louisville annihilated Syracuse. What's going to happen most likely Friday night? The exact opposite. And then we've got Fresno State against Boise State. Fresno State is representing right now the Mountain West in the top 25 rankings. All right, Saturday. To be determined, meaning there has not been a kickoff set due to TV looking at the matchups. Mississippi State at Alabama, LSU at Arkansas, Michigan at Rutgers, Auburn at Georgia, the South's oldest rivalry, Oklahoma State at Oklahoma, Bedlam. Washington State plays at Colorado. First, they've got to win this game. They just scored a very impactful touchdown, a very meaningful touchdown with 22 seconds left in the game, 32 seconds. So they should survive Cal. Kentucky's at Tennessee. Ohio State's at Michigan State. South Carolina at Florida, TCU at West Virginia, Wisconsin at Penn State, Oregon at Utah, Northwestern at Iowa, huge game in the Big Ten Western Division, Texas at Texas Tech, Ole Miss at Texas A&M, Baylor at Iowa State, Miami's at Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech's at Pitt. Pitt keeps winning. They're going to go to the ACC championship game. And those are most of the big games next week. So another big weekend to play. We had 5 upsets this weekend. We'll probably have 5 more next weekend. And if you like to lay $1 or 2 on the games, remember there's about 20 to 25% of the games in the top 25 turn out to be upsets against the money line. All right, this is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Please subscribe to my newsletter. Get your email address to mine. Send your email to mine at MarkRogersTV@gmail.com. I'm not going to clutter up your inbox with anything crazy. Nothing but 1 email per week, and that's my newsletter, The Voice of College Football, which is delivered to you each and every Monday. You will be glad that you did. As an avid, hardcore, smart college football fan, get locked in on that. Of course, if you're watching right now and you have yet to subscribe to my channel, why not? Subscribers, the number of subscribers, the number of comments, the number of likes, all that adds into the algorithms that YouTube uses that nobody can understand. But we all know that all those things need to be high. They need to go up and increase to help my channel. And eventually it helps you because I can create and produce better content and more content and make this a real business with a real setup. That's the vision. Sometime in the future weeks, I'm going to be asking anyone who cares about this channel, who's interested in the channel, who's interested in what we're doing here, that we're going to do a live stream. We're not going to talk college football. We're going to talk about the channel because I want your feedback. I want your suggestions. And we're going to set up a live stream at your convenience. I'm going to find out what times are best for you. So let's start this process right now. Anybody else still watching me? If you just watch me to listen to college football, obviously that's why I'm here. God bless you. I love having you on the channel to talk college football. You don't have to take interest in this channel. As long as we're producing college football content, you enjoy the analysis and the discussion. That's why we're here. But for some of you, you want to be a little bit more involved in the channel and what we're doing and make your suggestions known and provide your feedback and help us out in regards to building this out. I would like to do a live stream in which I have everybody who's interested in the channel and investing. I don't mean financially, but investing time and thought into the channel for us to have a live stream at your convenience. So if you're interested in that, just reply in any of the comment sections of any of the videos and just let me know what days and times would be best for you to do an hour live stream, a 2-hour live stream, for whatever time that you have available to give me your feedback. Let me explain to you what my thoughts are concerning the channel and my vision for the channel and what I would like to do, and your thoughts and suggestions on how I can make it better and more viable and self-supporting and so forth. All right. So leave that comment. Again, days and times that you would be available if interested in taking part in a live stream about the channel, only the channel. No college football talk. Obviously, I can't control what you guys talk about on the live chat, but my intent would be just to talk about the channel, provide an update and my explanation of my vision and my business plan, and to listen to you and your feedback right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Remember, I'm going to be up bright and early at 11 a.m. Eastern time over at SD1 Sports with a wrap on week 10 of college football. Please join me there for more college football discussion, and we'll have the lines open as well. Right here at Mark Rogers TV, we will see you soon. And yes, I'm going to check the live chat one more time to make sure I haven't missed anything. Cal's got the ball. They've got to score a touchdown. No, they are down 19-13. Yes, they've got to score a touchdown to hang in there against Washington State. But based on the point spreads, I'm good with that one. Adam, good to see you. Good night. 2KJ, good to have you on board. Antonio as well. Number one ND fan. Sense of humor. Bama boy. NBA fan. Anybody I've missed, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Terry Ann, how you doing tonight? I am wrapping things up. I apologize for not doing a Bama-LSU watch party tonight. I hope that you caught some of my live stream that I did just prior to the game, and I explained that I would not be doing a watch party. I was not able to do that tonight. We did that for Florida and Georgia last week. It was a whole lot of fun, and maybe we'll do that in the future. So sorry about that. I know that I kind of played that up throughout the week and said that I should be able to do it, but I made mention of that last night that I probably wouldn't be able to do it, but that I would let you know. I need to figure out how to be able to send you guys notifications without actually cutting a video, letting you know what I can and can't do or what's coming up. But I know that there's a way to send out notifications to everybody to say, hey, the live stream's been canceled for tonight, or we're going to add a live stream at 8 o'clock without just sending you a notification of the live stream in and of itself. All right, everyone. Crimson and White 17, thanks for joining. Dale Terry, Michigan fan, thanks for joining us. This is the first time I've seen your name in the live stream, so I appreciate you joining. Mark Rogers TV, Big Bubble Blue as well. I always throw in an extra B on there, Big Bubba Blue. Antonio Brooks, everybody else that took part in the live chat tonight. It seemed like a pretty successful one. So again, thanks for joining us. And those appear to be the top 4 teams in college football. So I'm glad that I actually purchased those helmets along with the other 13. So on Tuesday night, we should probably see Alabama at number 1, Clemson at 2, Notre Dame at 3, and Michigan at 4. We will see you guys very soon. My top 25 comes out in the morning, as well as my live stream at SD1 Sports at 11 a.m. Eastern Time.